Hello guys, and it's hump day, and it's hump day, and it's Wednesday, and it's hump day. Okay, anywho. It's a beautiful morning, it's a beautiful day, and everything's going my way. Boom, don't, dink. Let's get this day started. Stop signs are octagons, period. They have 8 sides, period. Then you have to write all of this. So coming at you today, it is Wednesday, November the 7th. And let's chit chat a little bit. It isn't quite even 5:30 yet, believe it or not, but I've had a full day. But I'm trying to get a little bit of this in before I give my daughter dinner. And if I can get all of this in before dinner, wow. If I can get all of this in before dinner, that's great. Dinner tonight is chicken, green beans, and rice. That's what's on the menu. Topic for today, and I've been running all day, so I haven't really had the chance to think a whole lot. But again, my goal is to just sort of share myself and share my wisdom at my age, darling. But to share, I'm not going to say anything there. Because people discriminate so much on race and age and education, and sometimes honestly I am guilty of doing such, and then I catch myself. I do, because my thing is to accept people. I have friends who come from a variety on the spectrum, who are degreed, non-degreed, Black, white, Latino, Asian, Egyptian, Italian, and I'm speaking of how they choose to identify. Because some people will be like, well, Egyptian means that's Africa, and it means that they're African. No, actually I can't, anyway, because the whole subject of race, that's just a whole different, but what I wanted to talk about today, I decided to just sit down and chat about taking your life back, because that has been my mission, for the last, I could say that I started trying to take my life back about 15 years ago, but I was really unsuccessful. I was in the throes of a major depression at that time. Was it 15 years? Yeah, it's about 15 years, maybe 13, 14 years ago. I was in the throes of a major depression. I was on medication, and I was just miserable. And I, was approaching another landmark birthday, and nothing in my life lined up with me. Like, I could, if as a child, when you're 16, 17, you have all these dreams. And I remember, I can't sing, okay? You all see me trying to, it's a beautiful morning, it's a beautiful day. But really, I can't sing. So, but I recall when I was about 17, drawing a picture. Because you would think I've had something to drink, because I can't, but I haven't. But I will later, maybe. Mommy's happy hour, which, if it's going to take place, it's going to take place between 9 and 10:30. Anyway, so I recall this picture that I drew of myself on a stage singing and performing in front of a huge audience, you know. Nothing in my personality is aligned with being a singer, but I was so into Janet Jackson, you know, and I wanted to be like her. And so, yeah, anyway, but so that dreaming of my life at 16 was so opposite. At that point, I was, maybe it was 12 years, maybe it was about 12 years ago. 12, yeah, about 12 years ago. Because I'm thinking I had just started my last job, and I was at that job for 10 years. And it was nothing. It was, I was managing partnerships in an industry that I had absolutely no interest in. Even when I mentioned to family what industry I was working in, they were like, what? You know, it was just, I was, I had that internal motherhood clock going off, and there was no prospect of a man that I felt I wanted to marry or to even be new age and just say I'm gonna have a baby. There was no one. My body had gotten away from me. I felt I was just miserable. I was miserable. And I remember just looking at my life and just, oh, and I was in a housing crisis too. And so I had this house and this huge mortgage and my bills and finance. I was in a mess. I was in an absolute mess. And I was just sort of like, why am I here? I wasn't suicidal, but I was like, why am I in this particular place? What is my life like? And, you know, through thinking, I realized I'm living a life that is not mine. This isn't mine. None of these things that I'm doing are things that I would have ever chosen to do on my own, you know. And so I slowly started to process and try to figure out why I was where I was. And ultimately, you know, it came down to, and there's no blame, because the reality is once I turned 18, I had full legal rights to leave my parents' home and do and be whomever I wanted to. And I actually tried when I was 18, yeah, because I started college at 17. And when I was 18, I called myself running away after my freshman year. And I'll talk about that because I basically caught a flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles. And I stayed about 24 hours. And I was stalked by a man. And it freaked me out. And I called my mom. And she basically said, I'm not going to ask you any questions. Just get on the next plane and come home. I don't know where you are. Yeah. But that was an experience. And then I ended up going back to Los Angeles. It's so funny. I would drive by a hotel that I checked in for all of a day. I didn't really even stay that night. So a couple of hours, really, all of a couple of hours. And I sort of laughed because I was like, wow, how life sort of turns and these turns and twists that you have. And who I was at that time, and then who I was then as an adult. And especially even, you know, when Gabby was with me, and I'm like, wow, life changed. But anyway, so taking your life back. I grew up in a very conservative family. Mother, father. Mother stayed at home. Father worked. Father previously had a 20-plus year military experience, was a military officer, retired, went into business, did very well in business. And so one of my closest friends now says that, and she was a child of divorce, she said that she always felt like I grew up in the Cleaver's house. If you know Leave It to Beaver, you all are young, so probably don't remember Leave It to Beaver. And I won't say you all are young. A lot of my viewers are young. But, you know, Leave It to Beaver was just that traditional, you know, wholesome family where dad came in at the end of the day and food was on the table. And, you know, in a lot of ways, if that is a barometer of, you know, then yeah, I mean, I did. I grew up in just a traditional, there wasn't a lot of drama. but my mother was unhappy. But that's a different situation, different thing to talk about. But my parents were very controlling and didn't want me to go down certain professional paths. One of them was art, another was English, another was writing. I wanted to be a broadcaster. None of that. My mother would say, my children are so smart, I can't understand why I don't have any doctors. None of you all are wanting to become a doctor. And I was placed on the path to become a doctor. My undergrad degree is in biology, but the beauty is that when I graduated from college, I did at least have the strength to say, this isn't what I want to do. I have this degree, but I don't want to be a doctor. Even though I spent 4 years studying whatever. But by then I'd gotten enough, chutzpah to say I don't want to do it. And the odd thing is I became a flight attendant. But that's a whole different thing. I was a flight attendant for a short amount of time with one of the major airlines. And then pushing that cart up the aisle, I was like, what am I doing? So, I stepped out of that and then went on the science track, all of that. But at a certain point, I just realized my life wasn't my own. So slowly I started to sort of wade through. And it really took, I would almost say it was the death of my mom 8 years ago, to really begin to weed through things, to really understand that, life, you choose your path. If you allow someone else to choose your path, then you're on that path. And, the guarantee of happiness will never be there. I mean, maybe you can take someone else's path and be happy. But I'd taken the path that my parents set out for me, and I was miserable. And what was difficult for me was that they had controlled so much to a certain point, and then when the grandchildren came, not through me, through my siblings, they sort of let go. But I was on this path now. And like, how do I get off this path? I have this degree and this is society is saying this is all that I can do because I have these degrees, and I want to do this, but I can't do that because I don't have that degree. I've been raised to have these values, and yet I want to do this, but I don't fit into that, And so there was the professional, there was the personal. I was miserable. And so when my mom passed, I really had time to think about her last few years, think about some of the depressions that she'd gone through and what she talked to me about. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be unhappy and die of a heart attack and I'm gone, I need to figure out really what I want. What do I really want? Because at that point, no one can tell me anything. I'm living in California. I'm paying a mortgage. I was still very single. I was in and out of relationships, looking for a baby daddy, husband. And all I was coming up with was, So, it was a slow process. And so taking your life back is not going to be something that happens immediately. It's a process. It's really a journey. I feel like at this point, where I am is totally carved out by my values at this point. And I may think, but you know what? They're my values. They're my decisions. And so, when it comes to maturity, though I may be of a certain age, I really feel like in a lot of ways, I'm like 30 years old. Because where many people who have the freedom to be who they wanted to be, and sort of go through this process of development and relationships and having children, and they find that groove in their 30s, and it's taken me a good while longer to just, so the battery or something that shut off on me, I don't know where it caught up, but I was talking about taking your life back, and the fact that I once bought this car that I didn't really want, and the perception of that car was that it was quality, and that I didn't want to upset my coworkers who, at that time I was working for a nonprofit organization. And the image of, me driving up with the car that I wanted, which was foreign made, would have created some heartburn with our CEO or my boss, and they would have had something to say. So for years, I paid for this car. Every month I paid for that car, I was like, ugh, when I see that car a lot of the times, because though it was a pretty car, it was totally not me. And I wrangled myself into something that I didn't really want because I was concerned about what other people thought. So once Gabby came to me, and this was before my daughter came to me, that I purchased this car. Once Gabby came to me, I really became more concerned about safety, and looked up cars and the safety ratings, and there was one in particular that had really good safety ratings. It was always known to be, sort of like a mom's car, but it's a, foreign car, and it's an SUV, and so I went ahead and bought that. I'd paid off the other car, and I went ahead and bought that car. Well, mind you, I drive up into the lot, and people had added, there was fallout. And there was fallout. That was the last year at that job. And there was fallout from that point throughout the rest of the year. The entire perception of who I was, and who does she think she is? Oh, she's a single mom. Why is she spending money? Blah, 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 blah. People had their own opinions. But in order to have the life you want and to take your life, you can't worry about what people think. So go right ahead and drive a car that you don't like because you're concerned about what people think. Rather than get the car that you want, you're the one making the payments, you're the one paying the insurance, and you're the one driving it. And so that's just an example of, how, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who's done that, but often it's probably on the other side where people buy the vanity or the expensive car because they're trying to impress, and they're sweating about this payment, and oh my gosh, but, I'm going to look good in my car, and it makes no sense because you're allowing other people to create anxiety and stress in your life that is not necessary, And it took me a long time to get to that point. I just am me. And people can accept that or not. And it is so freeing. But I do think that it takes a level of maturity and life experience to really get to that point where you don't worry about those things so much. And so taking your life back first, I think, requires figuring out what it is that you want. What do you want? And sometimes I know priority one for me is peace. I just want peace. I don't want a lot of drama, which I'll get into when I talk about why I don't date. But I don't want a lot of drama. I want my child to be healthy. I want to be healthy. I want to feel financially secure. I want to look in the mirror and recognize who I'm seeing, and know that my life and those things around me reflect who I feel I am. And so, the first step of all of that for me, and it was a long process, was again just sort of figuring out and tossing away those things that, is this really what I want? Why am I doing this? Is this really what I want? Why am I doing this? And that takes a while, because we get on an automatic pilot in life and we really don't think twice about what we're doing half the time. And so, you got to come out of automatic pilot. You really have to take the time and stop and sometimes question, why am I doing this? Especially if it's something that you don't like. When I'm sitting there writing that bill for that car that I didn't really want, why am I paying this bill for a car that I really don't like? Oh, because this person will think this and this person. Well, ultimately, who cares what they think? They're not writing the check. I don't really care. They can get over themselves, and they will. And And then really, and sometimes you're going to lose friends, people, family, when you really step out to be who you are. You know, I go back and forth right now about my hair. My mom would have had heebie-jeebies about me wearing my hair braided all the time. Like, you know, and I wear it braided most of the time, and I've got the stuff to do it now. It's a matter of finding the time. And I ran into one of her friends at a funeral here, maybe about 3 weeks ago, and she looked at me like, you know, because some people just have a certain attitude about braids and what they represent. I don't really care. Not your life, my life, you know. And so in order to take your life back, first define what it is that you want and who you are, and two, toss away your concerns about what other people want, okay, or think of you. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, you know, and it'll happen on a topic or issue or focus base by base. So over time, you'll recognize that people have a problem with something that you're doing, and you decide whether it's of any value to be concerned about what they think, or is it of more value to be concerned about what you think. Because literally, we're all gonna die. You know, nobody's gonna live forever, and I really wouldn't want to live forever. I think if I lived to be about 95, I'd be good. I'm not even trying to get to 100. 95 would be good. But when you think about the continuum of this earth and this world, it's that long. We're here that long, you know? And so during that time, this is an experience. This is a journey. You know, I hate to think about those people who live a tortured life all of their lives because they're trying to live up to other people's expectations and values, and then they're laying in a coffin. And nothing they ever wanted did they pursue. Wow, it's like, y'all can kiss it. Like, I really don't care what you think. I really don't. I see it, I acknowledge it, but I don't take possession of it. I don't claim it. Everyone has their own motive in relationships, whether it's a friend, a coworker. They have their own motive, and I'll be darned if I'm gonna be stressed out trying to address and meet whatever your motivation is. That's you. Here she comes. So we're gonna take a break, and she's ready to eat. The villagers are restless, so I'm gonna come back in a few. Dinner break. I'm back. So dinner is done, dishes are done. Yeah, Gabby's getting ready for bed. Yes. And so taking your life back really is about two things. One, figuring out really who you are and what you want. And that can't be done in a second. That can't be done. It's a process. And it may take years to really figure out who you are and what you want. But it needs to be a thought that you have. It needs to be a consistent thought. And then really once you figure out, and you can only figure, a 16-year-old's not going to know who they are and what they want. I think figuring that out truthfully comes with maturity. I wouldn't really think someone younger than 25, 26 really is going to figure out who they are and what they want. And even then, I think that's young, but there are those people who are mature and, you know. And I think so many people are drawn into and are trying to be people they aren't because of pressures from their family, their jobs, their friends, their community, these expectations. And it takes a good amount of maturity to be able to let those things go and basically say, you're not the boss of me, you know. Not caring what people think. Don't care what people think. People are going to have an opinion about you one way or another, okay? I finally recognized that I would rather people have an opinion about me when I'm being truthful and really genuine to who I am. And so who you're judging then is the core of me. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. But it's very different from being someone that you're not, being fake, and having people dislike you, and inside going, yeah, but that's not who I really am. If you really knew who I was. And I think I lived that for so long. And, you know, I'd rather you like me for who I truly am than to dislike me for who I'm trying to be, or even like me for who I'm trying to be. You like me or you don't. You know, when you're having that hard time and you're going through that period of trying to figure out who you are and what you want, and people disliking you for who you've decided, you know, you are, everything changes. You know, eventually, if you stand firm in the essence of who you are, if they're supposed to be in your life, they will be. If they're not supposed to be in your life, they'll be gone. You know, there's a saying, you know, there's a season for everyone. And sometimes that season is long, it's a lifetime, and sometimes that season is, you know, a week, 48 hours, you know? So anyway, but yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with this hair. I don't know. My hair. Anyway, so yeah, though I'm happy, I'm blessed. Woo, let me take that. Karma. I am blessed. I love my hair. I would like to keep my hair. Women, when they get to a certain age, you know, we have all these things that change, and I'd like to keep my hair. So I'm going to not put those things in the universe. Anyway, it is going on 7:40. I want to wrap this up so I have time to edit it. And hopefully I don't have the problem. Well, it wasn't even a problem. Last night I did not realize I was so tired when we came in from voting. I uploaded and it was taking a while for it to upload to YouTube. So I just went to bed, you know. And I assumed I put, you know, publish whenever it uploaded. And then when I got up this morning, it wasn't published. And it took me a while to figure out that somehow I'd marked it private. So, yeah. So I've got to make sure I don't do that tonight. And I want to try to get to bed at a reasonable time. Tomorrow's going to be a great day. It's a lot of catching up for her as far as class, because all assignments are going to be addressed, and I guess they get grades, another term, not end of session or end of semester grade, but they get progress updates next week. And so, yeah, everything has to be caught up in the system with her. So I'll be working on that, but we don't have any place to go. You know, today it was guitar lessons and flu shot. Yesterday it was hip hop dance and dancing. On Monday Monday it was orthodontist. It's just like every single day. But tomorrow there's nothing. So I'm looking forward to that. Just do school and we're done. I don't want to move my car at all. I just want to be a hermit. So anyway, I'm just going on and on. Thank you for watching. If you haven't yet liked or subscribed, hit those buttons, and we'll be back tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
Don't forget, like and